Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com. Welcome to another Sit and Talk. Today is Friday, March 7th, so I guess it's the first Sit and Talk for March. Anyway, I'm a little tired today. My son decided to not let me sleep very well last night. Getting up really early, and then I think I was waking up every 20 to 30 minutes, so just a little tired. I'm going to try to be energetic, answer all the questions that I can, but you've been warned. So, the purpose of the Sit and Talk, if you are a new viewer to this show, is just for people to ask me questions. I print them off and I answer them, and they're about anything, really. Typically we're on wargaming and business subjects, but we do venture into other things, such as politics or religion. So if you are easily offended by either of those subjects, then please don't watch this show, because you will probably get offended. I try to be as respectful as possible, and I try also to not spend too much time on those subjects, but it's just based on what people do ask. And of course, if you want to have more in-depth conversations with me about religion in particular, feel free to email me, Matthew@miniwargaming.com. I might not respond right away, because I usually like to spend more time on those emails, but I will respond. So anyways, I've printed off, there was 15 pages of comments. I've printed off 10. If by some miracle I get through all 10 pages within the first hour, then I will pause the video and go print off more and get through those as well. But last week I only got through like 5 pages because I got on some rants about MMORPGs and the existence of the universe and everything like that. So just never know what's going to happen with the Sit and Talks. So we'll just kind of see where we get. And of course, if you want your comment or question answered, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you don't post a comment on YouTube. You can post a comment on YouTube, it just won't get answered in the show. That instead you post it on our website. There will be a link in the video description. And that, there's no payment required. You can just have a free account and post it. It's just so I can print them off easier. Like, literally this takes me 10 seconds to print off, whereas if it was YouTube, it would just be a disaster trying to copy and paste all the comments. And I don't want to spend that much time, because I don't have a lot of time, because I've been very busy making lots of videos. And I think that you can agree that you'd rather me be making more battle reports than trying to reformat YouTube comments. So anyways, let's just go through these and see what we got. 3-round. Hey, I don't think I've seen that username on here before, so welcome 3-round. Hey Matt, mini wargaming fan from south of the border, United States. Long-time viewer, first-time vault member. Awesome. Just purchased a year of bronze. I know it's not the most popular option, but I only had so much money left over from buying a ton of System of Gaming terrain, and will be sending Adam some Infinity miniatures, Ariadna, to paint in a week or so. You know what? If everybody only got a bronze membership, we would be able to afford like 30 more content producers and a bigger studio and all sorts of stuff. So anything, even just the bronze membership, is incredibly supportive of what we do. Just wanted to say, you guys keep up the good work and keep the Infinity battle reports coming. Chase! That's what he said. He actually put a fist pump in there. I'm not understanding why the Lieutenant Special Order is being saved until the last order and then being sacrificed. What you're seeing, I'm getting the impression that the order is something that is meant to be used as a last order, but I can't find that as a rule anywhere. No, you can use it at any point. And the only reason you knew that it was the Lieutenant Order is because we were sacrificing it. Because what happens a lot that I've been finding is when you use linked teams, you can't use your Lieutenant Special Order. You actually can't. If you do use your Lieutenant Special Order on the Lieutenant in a linked team, she or he automatically breaks off from the linked team. And you don't want that, because the only way that you can form a new linked team is to use the Lieutenant Special Order. So what I tend to do is I'll tend to use, and I like to put my Lieutenant in a linked team because it protects him or her. And also often when I build my Acontecimento armies, that the regulars, that's the best choice for a Lieutenant. Just because a lot of the other specialists are going to be kind of heading up stuff, whereas the group of regulars are more, well, they can be aggressive, but you can kind of hide the Lieutenant. If there's like a group of 4 or 5 of them, then when they're moving up, the Lieutenant can kind of stay back and stay in total cover or whatever that they need to do. Still dangerous, but it's always dangerous for your Lieutenant. And so what I like to do is I like to use the Lieutenant Special Order at the end to nominate a new leader in that group, because what happens is normally when you're moving up, the person at the front is going to be the leader because they'll be the one taking the shot. And you can change who the leader is when you activate the unit, but you're only going to really activate the unit to advance and take a shot or a hack or whatever it is like that. So it's not normal. There are situations where you'll then use another order and retreat them or get them in a better position and you won't fire, so you could nominate somebody in the further back. Because if the person out front is the linked leader and somebody targets that guy and kills it, it breaks the link. And the link is broken for the rest of that turn. Now you can reform it with the Lieutenant Special Order in your turn, but you'll lose all the benefits, like all the extra bursts and the plus 3 ballistic skill and the 6th sense, all that kind of stuff. So I'll use the Lieutenant Special Order at the end to switch who the link leader is to somebody near the back, so that if they kill that one, that means that they've probably killed most of the other ones anyway, so it won't have mattered. But if the lieutenant's in there, you can't use it for the lieutenant. So that's why you're seeing that. It's because we've been using so many linked teams, because let's face it, you almost always should play with a sectorial with a linked team because they're just too good to ignore. Or in the case of the Aleph army, the Steel Phalanx, it's like play with 3 linked teams, and it's just too good. And then you put the rule. You can also use a special order to automatically resist any guts roll for himself or others. Yeah, so I could use it as that, but it's just nothing that comes up. As a quick example, I have an Ariadne army. Say I use one of my 3 tank hunters as my lieutenant. I also have several other models on the table that could be lieutenant because their profile allows them to be purchased as one. Now my tank hunters have camo, no infiltration, and only a 4/2 move value, so I want to get them up the board ASAP. For my tank hunter lieutenant, I spend 2 orders, one being a lieutenant order, to do move, move, and move, shoot. I do the same with my other 2 tank hunters. Thus spending 6 orders out of the 11 I have, one being a lieutenant order, but my opponent doesn't know I spent the lieutenant order on that tank hunter. I go about spending the rest of my orders on other models. At the end of my turn, I spent all my orders and haven't given away who my lieutenant is. I feel in a lot, if not all, of the Infinity Bat reps, which I love by the way, that order sacrifice is a huge waste. Unless, of course, I'm using lieutenant order incorrectly. No, I think, and in your situation, that's right. If they're going to be part of that. Now, it's dangerous using your lieutenant as a big offensive unit, because it's not hard to kill anything. There's really nothing in Infinity that is hard to kill. I know you might say, well, some of the Aleph guys with their ODD and all that, that's true, but if you want to kill something, you can most likely work to do it. You can spend a lot of your orders to kill it, get into position and do it. But usually you don't want to sacrifice all that just to kill the 1 or 2 guys. You want to go for objectives or things. But if you have your lieutenant running forward as a tank hunter or whatever it happens to be, then that does risk losing your lieutenant. Having a chain of command as a backup, that's good, but yeah. So that's why you're seeing that in the past few games, is because often our lieutenants are in the linked teams. 10 big Star Wars fan, 10. Hey Matt, do your models have to be fully based to play mini wargaming in a bat rep, or just fully painted? Fully based or fully... Okay, I'm going to assume that by fully based you mean like the painted and the base is done. Preferably, if they're done, the models are fully done. You could play without the bases being done, but I have a couple of my models where the bases aren't done, like my zone throbes. I still have to get those done, but no, it would take me like 10 minutes to do. I just never think about it until I go to play the battle report. So there is no have to. Definitely have to be fully painted. Like, they should look good on camera. And so I'd say, yeah, try to have them based. Oh, just got a text. I'm just going to silence. There we go. Anyway. Also, it is a 6-hour drive to mini wargaming from where I am, and I was thinking about traveling to you guys for a battle report. How many battle reports would I be able to play if I was in Welland for a few days? A lot. We work 9 to 5, Dave and I do, for our battle reports. Jay works Mondays and Tuesdays. Sorry, yeah, Mondays and Tuesdays, but he plays generally at Black Knight Games. So if you come here, you get have more access to Dave and I. But it's usually Monday to Friday that we play. Now, we could arrange a Saturday if we have enough advance notice for you to play against probably Jay at that point, because Dave and I it's hard to work Saturdays. But if you came in for a few days, like typically if somebody comes in for a day of battle reports against me from 9:30 to 5, we play 2 battle reports. That's what we do. So if you were to come in for a few days, now if you play against Dave, typically it's 1 battle report in a day because his banter battle reps take longer to do because there's more banter. So just depends. You'd be able to get a bunch in. With me, a couple a day. Dave tries to get 2 in. Usually the second one will be a smaller game or a kill team or something like that. So yeah, we could do a bunch. If you just make sure you give us plenty of notice if you're going to come in for that long. I'd say at least 2 or 3 weeks notice, and we could plan it and get a bunch of stuff done. One last thing, I recently saw a very rude comment on one of your videos insulting you in mini wargaming. The video was titled "Big Tyranid Order Received," and I responded by basically saying that criticism that is just meant to be insulting shouldn't be posted. A sort of comment war ensued with him continuing his insults to you guys and soon to myself. Some other people joined in the conversation as of now. It is still going on. I know the best thing to do would be to just ignore him and stop responding, but this was very upsetting to me, and I don't want him to continue his insulting YouTube comments to both myself and Mini Wargaming without continuing to respond to him myself. What are your thoughts about this? That is what we call typically a troll. Now, I haven't read his comments, so I don't know if he was actually trolling or if he was actually just legitimately saying something he didn't like about us. Because some people will come on and they'll just post nasty comments for the sake of riling up other people, and then if you respond, it's what's called feeding the troll. You're probably familiar with this. I actually like, if somebody posts something bad about us, I like when other viewers defend us. Because if we defend ourselves, yeah, it's just, that doesn't really work. But if somebody else defends you, it looks much better. So I appreciate when people do. If it turns into a comment war, I would just usually ignore it and just let the guy talk himself out, because other people will read that and be like, obviously this guy is just being a jerk, so who doesn't matter. I haven't seen those comments that you're talking about. I'll have to go check that out afterwards. I do monitor comments on our videos, but usually only for the first few days that the video is out. Afterwards I stop watching them, just because we put up so many videos it'd be impossible to keep up. Shadow Mage. Hey Matthew, I'd just like to say a couple things before I ask my question. Primus. Oh, as in first question. I've known of Mini Wargaming for a while, or first comment. I've known of Mini Wargaming for a while, but I've lately been following you guys a lot more closely. I feel everything, nothing bad comes to mind, you guys do is excellent business practice for us and you. Over the several years, I've been slowly warming up to you guys at Mini Wargaming. I've also developed a strong respect for you guys as well. You guys work hard constantly, making new, funny, and occasionally tactically inspiring videos. The quality of your group's work constantly seems to improve, usually through better technique or a new idea. Secondus. While I do not have a faith and do my best to be tolerant of other faiths, I have a friend who rallies hard against any sort of religious person. He is quite oddly convinced that any sort of faith befouls a person's mind with resistance to change and logical thinking. You are the perfect counter to this. It's clear from these sit and talks you keep a great head on your shoulders. You've mentioned in a previous sit and talk you wish religions were a bit less stymied in adapting to society as society progresses. Sometimes, due to being a constant explorer of the internet, it's easy to forget that there are people of faith of moderate temperament who are able to stand their ground, affirm their beliefs, but also be willing to respect the beliefs and thoughts of others, even those who just attack their faith. Thank you for being an example of such a type of person. Well, thank you very much. That's a very nice compliment. Tertius. While I am not a Vault member yet, it's becoming increasingly difficult to resist. I'm getting you! I'm getting you! The Necron tier to campaign almost has me throwing my money at you already. Oh, wait till you see the campaigns that are going to follow the Necron Tyranny campaign. After a while, you're just going to be like, I can't do it, I just can't do it, I can't resist. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it so it's just like a win-win situation. You're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. It doesn't cost that much. So I might as well, it's worth it for all the extra stuff that I'm getting. Whatever the reason, I find myself leaning toward the industrial-size lifetime membership as opposed to trickle-feeding you my cash in a conventional membership way. While you may not be able to answer this, can you possibly say when the next opportunity for lifetime memberships will be about? I missed my opportunity when you were funding the new studio, and I've been regretting it something fierce lately. Any information, even vague hints, would be appreciated. But if you can't for some reason, I'll understand. That's a good question, and it's interesting because we just had that discussion this week, Dave and I. And I will tell you right now that we probably won't ever do lifetime memberships again. Unless I get some new information or things change. You see, the way we looked at lifetime memberships is you have to look at your data and figure out if it's worth it. Like for example, let's say that you're charging $10 a month for a membership. Like forget what it's for, who cares? So $10 a month, and let's say there's no yearly, it's one level membership, $10 a month. What you can do is you can do a data analysis of your customers to find out what the average lifetime expectancy of a customer is. Because a lot of people will cancel first month, and then less will cancel the second, and less will cancel the third, and then your cancellation rate drops the longer people stay in. And that makes sense, right? If they're staying in a longer time, obviously they're people who want what they're paying for. And so you can actually do a statistical analysis to find out what the average value of your customers are. And then you can use that to, well, there's a few things you can use that for. Let's say you find out that your average lifetime value of your $10 a month customers is, on average, they stick around for 4 months. Which you might be thinking, well, that's really low, because some people stick around for 2 years. Yes, it's true, but a large portion of people don't last past the first month. Now, that's not the case with the Vault. We actually have really good retention. People stick around. I'm actually kind of surprised at how high our retention is. Even for the trial, like how many people will renew after the 7-day trial has been incredibly high. Like higher than it ever has been for us in the past few years. And then the cancellation rate once people are past the trial is ridiculously low. Like once people are in, it's like, I think the average for bronze and silver at least is 3% cancel every single month. So 97% stay month to month. Like, that's like ridiculously awesome, and it's just great. And so anyways, what you do is you're like, okay, well, if on average, so you can take those percentages and you can statistically find out on average, after like, obviously not lifetime because you don't have 50 years of data, but you can say within the first 2 years, typically you've made 4 months of money from each sign up, because, you know, a bunch of them have canceled, so they haven't really contributed anything, and then some have stayed, and it averages to 4 months. That's not our number, by the way. Ours is actually higher than that. But so you take the 4 months, you multiply it by the $10, and you can say the average lifetime value of your customer is $40. So this gives you a few different things. One, it tells you how much you can pay to acquire new members. Obviously, you want to be paying less than $40. In fact, I think what you usually go for is about a quarter of that. So you'd be saying, okay, if we're making $40 on average within a 2-year span, then we'd want to pay no more than $10 to acquire that. So if you're doing paid advertising, if you're paying for video advertising or banner advertising, you can track how much it costs to get a customer. You don't want it to be any higher than $10. So that's the first reason that that's useful. It's a tool. It's not something that you just use as an absolute, especially because over time those numbers will change. Like our Vault membership, for example, has higher retention than it used to. The retention used to be lower, not bad, but just more a normal retention. And so when we calculated it, you can say, okay, well, if it's $40 on average, then if somebody pays for a lifetime membership, and let's say you charge them $100 for the lifetime membership, then that's higher than the average lifetime value. So it's totally worth it, at least to a point. Because really that $40 will increase if you say, well, how much will we make after 3 years, after 4 years, after 5 years? So you have to make sure that if you do a lifetime, that it essentially is a few years worth of how much you would have made on average from the person. So to the person, they're like, sweet, I just paid $100, and so it saves them a ton of money. To you, you're like, sweet, the average lifetime value of a customer is less than that anyway, so we're making more money from that person than we would have. Although you have to think about the extra expenses as they stick around longer and bandwidth and all of that. And so when we used to look at that number and did the calculations, we were like, yeah, it's worth it to do the lifetime memberships, and so we offered them. And this week, we've been talking about offering them again, and so this week I did the number crunching, and our numbers are so good that we'd actually lose money by doing lifetime memberships, unless we charge something insane. Like for a lifetime silver membership, you pay like $500, then that might be worth it. And for a gold, it would be almost $1,000. Which obviously people aren't really going to be willing to pay, because they're like, okay, or I can just pay this $72 a year, and it would take me over 7 years to pay that amount. But according to our numbers, that would be the only way that's worth it. So just being transparent here, letting you know how we make our decisions. It's really about making sure it's a win-win situation, because if we all of a sudden start pushing lifetime memberships, sure, we make more money right now, but in a year from now, we will have a decrease in our revenue. And so any growth that we did from that influx of cash, it'll hurt us in the long run, basically. And we're in this for the long run, like long run, like decades long run. And then hopefully over the decades we can grow to a point where eventually Dave and I can retire from it and people won't be too disappointed, because there'll be so many other awesome personalities making videos. So that's what I can say right now. Things could change. Maybe we'll recrunch the numbers and find new information that'll tell us maybe it is worth it. But I can tell you right now, it's not likely going to happen. I was actually even working on like a sales letter and a campaign where I was actually going to start promoting it to certain qualified Vault members, but no, we're not going to do that. So there you go. And for those of you who might be thinking, oh, well, you're just trying to, you're being money grubbing, or you're being greedy, you're not offering the customers. It's a business. Like, we really have to look at it that way. We have to make sure it's sustainable for both you and us. We have to make sure it's sustainable so we can continue to grow. We don't want to grow and then see a decrease in revenues because we did all this lifetime stuff, and then all of a sudden have to not grow but actually like start laying off people. Because once you grow, once you start producing more content, people will expect that as your base amount of content. Like, we used to release a battle report every week in multi-parts. So we like break it up into 4 or 5 parts and release it over 5 days. And that would be our week of content, would be a 5-part battle report released over a week. And some people would complain about it, but not too many. People just were used to it. That's what we did. And so it was just the expected amount of content from us. And so now, if we did that, we would have mutinies on our hand. Everybody would start canceling their vault memberships because they expect more of us, and rightfully so, because we've been producing more. The expectations are there. So we have to be careful when we decide to increase our content production, because once you increase it, it's hard to decrease it. It's not hard to maintain what you're already doing to keep people satisfied, but if you can't decrease, and that's where the tough decisions have to be made. And so we have to make sure that what we do is sustainable, and that anytime we grow and add new content producers, that we really will be able to afford them, or at least think that we'll be able to afford them in the long run. So it's a lot of tough decisions, a lot of business stuff. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I actually really enjoy that aspect of the business. And yes, the sun is in my face if you keep seeing it on my nose and stuff. I really enjoy that number crunching aspect of the business, and looking at reports, trying to figure out those kind of things. That's actually what I enjoy the most. Well, I like making videos too, but and doing campaigns and all that. But I do. That's why I got into business, was because I love all that kind of the growing thing, like looking at your reports and seeing numbers go up, and looking at retention rates. I love that. That's the cool stuff for me about business. So hopefully that answers your question. Probably not the answer you wanted, but it's an answer nonetheless. Geeko 170. In your opinion, what games have the best models and miniatures? I'm not a big player of many miniature games, but rather am looking to get models for display purposes. What would you recommend? Well, if you're looking just for display purposes, there's a lot of companies out there who don't really do games, and they do more models. Like the one that comes to my mind is Studio McVeigh. He does like fantastic looking models. Now, if you're looking at a larger source company, like comparing Privateer Press, Games Workshop, Corvus Belli, and all that, I would say hands down Games Workshop makes the best looking miniatures. If you like that style, like if you like the fantasy or the gothic sci-fi, because their stuff just is super detailed, and it just looks fantastic, and it's very convertible and everything else. But there are other small companies where it's like one guy, maybe two guys, one guy who's a sculptor and one who's a fantastic painter, and they'll create limited edition sculpts. I'm thinking Studio McVeigh is the one that comes to my mind. But if you go on like Cool Mini or Not and you go to their store, they've got like access to so many different manufacturers of miniatures that you can kind of look through there and see what they have. There will be a lot of mediocre ones, of course, but there are some really good sculptors out there who just spend a lot of time sculpting limited edition stuff. So they'll spend a lot of time just making one awesome thing. They'll cast that. Maybe it's limited edition, maybe it's not, but like Studio McVeigh does limited edition, I believe. So that's my suggestion. Raziel. Matt, love mini wargaming and all your vids. Thank you. All the guys are awesome, and I'm a big fan of the whole concept. The friendliness / cooperative aspect you are helping to create in the community with others is huge. On to a question. Is there any chance you would consider a new fan contest? For example, a fan game scenario or artwork or story. I'm voting game scenario. You know what? Contests are something that we haven't actually done in a while. There was a reason for that. It's because the past couple contests that we did had very lackluster participation. So it could be because we didn't promote them heavily enough, or didn't have cool enough prizes, or just have a cool enough contest. But honestly, I haven't even thought of doing a contest until you just mentioned that for a while. But it is something that we enjoy doing from time to time. So that's probably something we should consider. Tomadrum. Hey Matt, I gave the comment a few episodes about outflanking the Terberg and the spawning happening after movement. Have you had a chance to try this tactic with taking electroshock grubs, haywire template, and miasma cannon? If so, what do you think? I did actually take it in a game. It was a vault video, I think. I even did double. I actually doubled it. Took 2 Hive Tyrants. Oh, but the game was with the one Tyrannid scenario from the Altar of Wars book, and it turned out to be a really dumb scenario. But the idea seems good. It's expensive to bring the Terberg with all those upgrades, because you have to also bring the 30 Termagants, which, to be honest, Termagants competitively have just kind of become, and they're just not that good. Like, they've never been good, don't get me wrong. But before, you'd bring a Terberg, and you could upgrade the Terberg, it would upgrade the Termagants and could actually make them viable. Now they're still viable because they're just 4 points apiece, but there's just always something better to bring in the troop slot. So we did try it, and it worked out fine, but the scenario was just so off balance that it kind of threw it off. Also, I wanted to get your rules interpretation on something. What if you gave your Harpy Acid Blood? Would this mean that in using Sonic Screech when charging and then taking wounds in the first round of close combat would then force the enemy to test at -5 initiative for seeing how many Acid Blood wounds are caused? Could be a nifty little combo if it works that way. Well, hold on, let me just double check. I've got my iPad here, which has, I don't have my actual codex here, so. Tyranids. So you'd have to look up the 2 rules and see what the wording is. For Lucky, the or the FAQ, if it's not already out when it comes out, I need to keep checking for that. Okay, so Harpy has Sonic Screech. When a Harpy charges into combat, all enemy models in the combat suffer -5 to their initiative until the end of that assault phase. Okay, so until the end. So it's until the end of that assault phase. So then we look at the biomorphs, and we look at Acid Blood. And Acid Blood, where are you? Here we are. For each unsaved wounded model with the Acid Blood biomorph suffers in close combat, the enemy unit that inflicted the wound must take an initiative test at the end of the current initiative step. So obviously that would be before the end of that current assault. For each test that has failed, the unit that inflicted the wound immediately suffers a Strength 5 AP2. At a cursory glance, I say yes, you're right. That it would be, he would test it at Initiative 1. Unless the main rule book, which I don't have right in front of me, look up doing tests, like initiative tests and all that. And the question, which I think I know the answer to, is do you just use their base statistic or do you use the modified statistic? Like let's say they have, they need to make a strength test and their strength is 4 normally, but for some reason they have access to Biomancy and they have Iron Arm on and so their strength has been buffed. Do you make the strength test on that base 4 or on whatever it's buffed to? I would assume that's whatever the modified is because, for example, the Tesseract Labyrinth that the Necron Overlord can take makes you do a wound test. And the idea is that you take down their wounds and then the wound test becomes harder and harder to do. And so I would assume that it would be on the current attribute, in other words, the modified one. So that does sound like it could work. And that way, because you know that the Harpy is going to take some wounds, because it's not that hard to kill, it's only toughness 5, 4+ save, that you could force that, and they take a strength 5 AP2 in return. So that could be, it could be an interesting combo. It does assume that the Harpy's taking wounds, which of course means that you're killing your Harpy, who you've upgraded to have Acid Blood, so it's not going to be cheap. But it might be worth a try. That's one thing I just haven't really thought to do yet with my flyers. I've only brought them a couple times, but actually trying to get them into close combat. Because of the way they're on their bases, you just forget that they're not just flyers, that they actually can glide as well. My opponents are always surprised when like, can I ground those ones? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Because it doesn't look like you can because they're on the big flying bases, right? Whereas like the Flying Hive Tyrant is modeled in such a way that it's obvious that he's, like you don't even know that he's up in the air. So that's an interesting combo though. I'll have to see. I would play it that, yeah, you do it at the initiative 1 or initiative -5 if they have a higher initiative than 7, or if they have 7 or higher, then it would be whatever it's reduced to. But that is interesting. Oh, and I also wanted to ask you, I noticed many wargaming covering Dreadball games. Have you played GW's Bloodball, and if so, what are your thoughts between the two? I have not played Bloodball. I know people have been asking me to because we've covered Dreadball, but I want to cover some non-Games Workshop games, not because I hate Games Workshop, but because just to diversify. And also because Dreadball is actually supported, whereas Bloodball is not. So they're coming out with new stuff. I can tell you my idea of Dreadball. I've only played Season 1 of Dreadball, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But it's a little silly. In fact, it's a lot silly. I'm sure there's a lot of underlying tactics that we're missing, just because we've only played with a small group and they're all beginners. But it's just like, it's just a bunch of silliness. And if you can take that, then it's a lot of fun. But I haven't played Bloodball, no. Rezial, wow, posted earlier before your thoughts on the origins, existence, or lack thereof. I come from a different background than you, but I have to say I agree with your thoughts on this very much. It is fascinating, as you say, and we do need to approach all these topics with an open mind, no matter our initial positions. If more people took the time to be interested in these questions, I think we would be much better off and prosperous as a race. If we focus more on philosophy and exploration rather than politics and war, we'd be able to evolve as a species in a way that we might even be able to achieve true understanding of our existence one day. Yeah, it helps. No matter what you believe, right? You should have an open mind. That's two things. Not an open mind to necessarily say, you know, you shouldn't believe that. Like if you believe in God, it's not like you should have an open mind, maybe God doesn't exist. That's not what I mean. Or if you believe in, or if you whatever you believe in, it doesn't mean that you have to be like just kind of willing to discard all your beliefs. But you have to realize that whatever your beliefs are, your knowledge is limited, and so you might misunderstand your own beliefs. You might misunderstand your own whatever it is that you're supposed to understand. Everything's very complicated. Science is very complicated. Religion's very complicated. Just all the things that you have to do. Even if God exists, that would be complicated. Like, obviously, there's a lot to it. So thinking that we just fully understand everything, whether it's science or religion, is just foolish. It's just dumb. So we got to be willing to kind of see how our beliefs fit with different information that comes. So, yeah. Miso, really enjoy the GW Digital Products review. Could you do one for Privateer Press War Room as well? Yes, maybe. Those in-depth reviews are good. More of them, please. Finally, how's the book reading going? Actually, we just picked up the second the one in the Stormlight Chronicles, the sequel to Way of Kings. I think it's called Words of Radiance, and I'm liking it so far. I've only read the first few chapters. Holly's already read like through the whole thing within a couple of days. But no, I'm enjoying it. I just the 40K books. There was the Gaunt's Ghosts omnibus that I bought, and I just started reading it. I just couldn't get into it. I just was so disinterested. It took me a little bit to get into the Ravener series, the trilogy as well. I really enjoyed that in the end, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I've been trying, and I keep going back to it, but then it's been so long that I have to reread, and I just can't get into it. I'm sure it might be great, but it's hard. I find that I have a hard time getting into a book, no matter what it is. This one, the sequel to Way of Kings, I can get into right away because I already know all the characters, and so it's not like I have to learn all these new names. That's the hardest thing for me. So when I read a new book, it's all of a sudden all these new names, and most books and most authors will make up names, and so it's just like it's hard to remember who is who and what their characteristics are, because in a movie you kind of get a sense of somebody really quickly. The character appears, and the way they talk and act and dress and look and all that kind of stuff, you can get an overall idea of their character. Whereas in a book they have to do a lot more describing, which is fine. I love books. But it takes longer to kind of get to know the characters. You also get to know them a lot more in depth than you ever do in a movie because, well, it's just the movie's shorter. That's really what it comes down to. So yeah, so that's the hardest part for me. So the Gaunt's Ghost one, it took me a little bit, and it never caught my interest. And so I just kind of I haven't read any further. Whereas this book has immediately caught my interest because I know all the characters and I love them so much. So, Evil Wizard, 40K rules question for you. Can a unit in a transport make a Deny the Witch roll when the transport is targeted by a Psyker? Also, have you thought of putting out videos basically going over how to play 40K and the basic rules? I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. And we have a series of how to play 40K videos already on the site. So if you go at the top of our site and click on videos, and then click on how to play, there should be one of the playlists there. How to play 40K. Luke F36. Hey Matt, do you think that the 40K armies people choose to play or collect depends on not just liking the look of feel of an army, but the gamer's personality? I'm a massive metalhead, so the obvious way for me to go was Chaos Space Marines, considering this is what made you choose Necrons. I don't know. I guess obviously it has something to do with your personality. I love Zerg, and so I chose Tyranids because they spoke the most Zerg to me, even though I was disappointed in the way they looked. Still like the whole swarming mentality. I chose Necrons actually just because they would be easy to paint. That's why I chose them. I knew that I could just spray them gray, wash them black, and then pick out some details and be done with it. So that's why I chose Necrons. But I'm sure that some people choose it based on their personality. Obviously you did, so obviously that does happen. Also really like the idea you guys had about a way to persuade the family or folks or partners to come visit Canada for some bat reps. Do we need to put a similar page up to help persuade you guys to come to England for some bat reps? Keep up the good work. We'd love to. Honestly, we've got to one day, once we've saved up enough money, because it would be an expensive trip because our wives would insist on coming, and that makes it even more expensive. My wife's family's from England. She's never visited there, and she's always wanted to, so there's no way she'd let me get away with going to England without coming too. And that makes everything way more expensive. And yeah, we'd come over there, record tons of videos, so it'd totally be worth it business-wise, because we'd come back with all sorts of footage for games, and that'd be really fun, kind of our England tour. But it's hard when you have little kids, got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and Dave's got 2 kids as well, with another on the way. So it's just tough. It's tough doing that. Necrons are awesome. Hey Matt, could you do another battle report sometimes when you use your Necrons? Love your videos, by the way. Yes. Anyhow, hey Matt, just a quick comment about the absence of evidence not being evidence of absence. Oh, here we go. It's going to get deep. Coming from a scientific background, when we have a lack of evidence, we assume that said thing does not exist. As it is impossible to disprove something other than by proxy, a usual example being the idea of there being black swans. You cannot show the idea of there being no black swans are true, only disprove it by locating one, which proves the idea of there being black swans. So therefore, until you find a black swan, we assume that there are no black swans. Not telling you to stop believing anything as assumptive as that, just letting you know how we view absence of evidence when doing an experiment. That makes perfect sense, 100%. I just don't believe there's an absence of evidence, but that's like a whole other thing. So I'm not saying that there's no evidence of God. I'm just saying that you won't necessarily be able to scientifically find unless actually, well, I wouldn't even say that. See, for me, just the way the universe works, to me, is evidence. I could list off so many things that to me show that it's not just by chance. And like I said before, I know that there's also the theory that there's just infinite number of parallel universes, and so when you have an infinite number of universes, one of them is going to have all the right conditions to do exactly what it's been doing in ours. And sure, that's a theory that works just as well. But same thing, right? It's just a theory to fit the observations that we have. But no, I agree with you. I know why scientists wouldn't be like, well, there could be black swans. We can't disprove it. I understand why they wouldn't do that for that case. Marshall Aid, hey Warren. Ever seen Saving Private Ryan? Just wondering, since the beginning of the movie is very violent, but has been praised for its accurate portrayal of the Omaha beach landings. Is this gratuitous? Or maybe just a homage to history? Thoughts? I am of the more opinion that it's gratuitous. I know that it's accurate, but why do I need to experience something as awful as that? That's really what it comes down to. And then some people will be like, well, you need to know. It's like, no. You don't have to, like, it already sucks that people have to go to war and experience it firsthand. So why do I need to experience that? So, you know, you just don't need to. So yeah, that's just what I think. Also, is Dave's sister Mel single? Haha, kidding of course. Maybe not totally kidding. Does me wanting to tell a girl she's pretty on the internet make a creepy pervert? Haha, have a nice day, and thank you for answering my question last week. It makes you feel like a creepy pervert, because as soon as a pretty girl's on the internet, all the guys are like, ah, and they all act kind of stupid. Hi. You'll have to get through Dave, but no, there's nothing wrong with seeing a girl and thinking she's cute. It's obviously the internet is just kind of done with that, and so it kind of spoils it for everybody else who just wants to give an honest compliment. Rowan Ingram. Hey Matt, I love your videos, the content, all the guys at Mini Wargaming, everything you do. I just wanted to ask, well, thank you. I just wanted to ask how to go about starting a wargaming channel. I have the equipment and models, but do not know how to go about attaining a decent audio, or how to edit the videos. Any response is greatly appreciated. To me, there's 2 types of wargaming channels that you can create. One is just one for fun, and one is where you're serious about making money. If you're serious about making money, it's totally doable. Like heck, we've done it, right? But you have to be willing. Like it's a lot of work. Like it's taken years to build it up. So because there's a lot of people who want to create a small channel, just make videos casually, and they want to somehow make money from that, and it's just not really possible. YouTube revenues are not that great. Like even people who get a lot of views on their videos, not wargaming videos, I'm talking like video game kind of videos, they need to put out a lot of content for them just by themselves to make a half decent income from it. So if you're thinking about making money, good luck. That's all I gotta say. Unless you're willing to go like what we've done and really make a business out of it, and even go as far as to have some sort of membership site where people pay. Like I honestly think that in this market, that's the only way to do it. Unless you have like a store that you can make money from, and you might think, well, your store shut down. Well, we have a lot of factors working against us. Like being in Canada, for example, actually works a lot against us for shipping and cost and everything. But But anyway, so there are to me there's only a couple ways to monetize a wargaming channel. One is either to have a store, and two is to have a membership site that really does it. Trying to just sell advertising, that'll help you a bit, but you need a lot of views before advertising revenue does anything for you. So let's just assume that you're just looking to do it casually, in which case, like you say, you have all the equipment, but you don't have decent audio. Audio is the hardest part because it's the most expensive part. If you're looking at having really good audio for your camera, then you need to buy a camera first off that has a mic input so that you can put a different microphone on it. And then you need to buy a good microphone. We recommend the Sennheiser, the G3s or the E3s, whatever we have for the wireless mics, but they're like $800 a piece for like one pair. That does come with at least at the time, it comes with that one handset one that you see us using. So that's the most expensive part. Now, mind you, we got more expensive cameras now, but totally not necessary. You could buy just like your $400 HD camera from Best Buy or Future Shop or whatever you buy your electronics from. For editing, we just use Sony Vegas Studio. That's all we use. But you can use whatever you want. Like editing software is editing software is editing software. Like sure, Adobe with Premiere and After Effects, they can do all sorts of stuff that you might not be able to do with Sony Vegas. But look at the stuff that we do. Like the editing is simple. In fact, I do very little editing for our battle reports because I do it all on camera. I just make sure that the shots are quick and concise and that there's not a lot of extra stuff on each side of them. And then I can just click and drag them all into the thing. So that's the advice that I can give there. I know it's not really detailed, but it's because there's a lot to talk about there. I could talk a long time just about that. Also, I need some help for getting back into the hobby. As I have been drifting away from it slowly, I have over 8 armies, being between Fantasy and 40k, but do not find enjoyment in building them, just painting them. And you can't paint unbuilt models. Once again, thank you and love every episode. Mini Wargamer till I die. Well, my first piece of advice is it's a hobby. If you don't enjoy it, then don't do it at all. Like, I know that's like, woo, blasphemy, you gotta do it no matter what, it's wargaming. But no. Now I know in your case you said you like painting, not assembling, but I don't think there's a way around that. You might just have to do the part that you don't like in order to get to the part that you do like. Painting takes a lot longer than the assembling anyways, so really you're just looking at spending a little time to get to the part that you really enjoy. So, yeah, but it's a hobby. Like if you don't feel like doing it, it's okay. It's really okay. If you liked it before and don't really care about it now, that's okay. It's really okay because it's a hobby. It's not like you're doing some sort of career and you're like, I don't want to work anymore, and you just stay home and be lazy. That's not the same thing. It's not like you're like, oh, I have a family, but I don't want that anymore, so I'll just get a divorce and leave my kids. Like, that's not that. This is a hobby. It's just, you just do it to relax and to be entertained and to enjoy yourself and to fill in those times between, like, you've had a long day at work and maybe your kids have gone to bed and you have something to do to unwind, or it's, entertainment is an important part of our lives. It really is. If we work well and then we have good entertainment, it's a very wholesome life. But it doesn't mean, it's just, whatever. So I just tell people that, because a lot of people are like, I don't know, I'm not enjoying it as much. How do I get the enjoyment back? It's like, well, you don't have to. That's the first thing to remember. There are ways to get the enjoyment back, like do campaigns rather than don't go to tournaments. That'll kill your enjoyment. Just focus on what you like, try out a new game. There's all sorts of things I can say. But really, in the end, it's a hobby. So do what you like. If you gravitate towards something, do that. Rowan says, it's audience, not audio. Don't know why I put audio. Oh, so you want to know how to acquire a decent audience. That's a whole other question. To acquire a decent audience, you need to put up good videos. That's really all there is to it. Now, it's tough at first because you could put up an awesome video. If nobody sees it, then nobody shares it. So you have to kind of work at first to build your initial audience, and there's lots of ways to do that. You have to, first off, you got to put up good content, like good videos. If you don't, then well, that's gonna handicap you right from the beginning. Then you just got to find places where you can post your stuff. There are forums out there that have sections for like battle reports, and so you could post when you have a battle report on there and get people's feedback on that. You could, you just have to kind of find ways without spamming. Become active on a popular forum, and if they allow you to have signatures with links in them, then you could be like, you can update that signature, especially if you're like on a big forum like Daka, for example, if you're doing 40k. And if the forum software allows you to update your signature in one place and it updates it everywhere, then that can be nice, because then you can update it with like your latest video, and then updates at all these different places. Participate in good conversations. Then it just gets you just become part of a community, and then you can grow it that way. That's how we kind of grew at the beginning. Now that we've kind of reached that critical mass of having enough viewers, when we put out good content, that's enough to get more viewers, because then those viewers will watch it on YouTube. Then it goes through YouTube's algorithms and shows up in more people's feeds, and then people share it, and it goes on their Facebook and Twitter, and I don't know how many people use Twitter, but lots on Facebook and in their YouTube feeds, so their friends see it, and so yeah. So it just kind of reaches a critical mass after a while. Grey Fox Liquid. Hi Matt, I really like all the stuff you and the mini Wargaming staff put on the site, especially as a Vault member. Just wanted to say something about your last sit and talk, when you talked about game developers and companies, etc. In your examples, you talked about THQ and the dawn of war games. I'm not quite sure if you were aware of it, but THQ went down ending 2012, beginning 2013. Yeah, I know. That was just more an example. Don't really remember the exact date. And all developer teams were sold to other companies along with the licenses. Relic and the Dawn of War license were sold to Sega for $26.6 million. That seems rather low. Sega is the publisher of the Great Total War series, Creative Assembly being the developer of it. So there's a good chance of seeing something more of the Warhammer 40k franchise someday, but for now there's nothing official yet. No, I know that they went under. I was more just making an example. But that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm looking forward to the Warhammer Fantasy Total War. That seems like it'd be good. 40k Total War wouldn't really make sense, because they don't fight in the big block formations and stuff, and that's what Total War is all about. It's just these huge armies kind of slowly marching towards each other and skirmishing. 40k doesn't work that way. Yeah. Reckless Mage. Hey Matt, I'm making a Dark Angel army and I have about 100 points left to spend. Should I get a Dark Shroud or a Landspeeder with the Typhoon Missile Launcher? I don't know, I don't play Dark Angels. Jay.
Yeah?
Should you get a Dark Shroud or a Landspeeder with the Typhoon Missile Launcher?
Landspeeder.
Landspeeder is what Jay says. He plays Dark Angels. Also, do you like the idea that your head of state is Queen Elizabeth, also Queen of England? Also, do you like the idea of the Commonwealth? I have no problem with the Queen of England being our official head of state. If she ever tried to exercise that authority, you'd probably see her booted out of that pretty quick. But no, also, do you like the idea of the Commonwealth? Sure, I guess. I have no problem with it. Like, some people are like, oh, look, you're still part of England. It's like, and so what? It's like, we have our own government and we make our own decisions, and it's fine. I know technically the Prime Minister is not the leader of Canada, the Queen of England is, but it's very much technically. And yeah. So no, I don't have a problem with that. England is our motherland. I know in the United States they broke off and had to have a war with it, and that was necessary to achieve the religious freedom that they needed. But we came later, and it didn't require a war. I'm not saying that it shouldn't ever, like, obviously it shouldn't have required a war, but it's not like it's the United States' fault for having required a war. Like, they wanted that freedom, and England didn't want to give it to them, and so there was the war. Whereas when Canada wanted to become its own country of sorts, at that point there wasn't as much problem doing that. And there's a lot more to it than that, I realize. But no, I don't have a problem with that at all. Spiffner, hey Matt, thanks for all the quality bat reps and videos you put out. Awesome, thank you. I have been looking for a new game to play and stumbled across your Infinity bat reps at Chase. What a great game, and how refreshing that the rules are free. Okay, the figures aren't cheap, but they are awesome quality. I find the army list a bit confusing, but have been using online list builders which help. Example, Infinity Pool. Do you use any online apps and websites? And will you be doing any tutorial videos like you have done for 40k? We actually yesterday just made our first couple of Infinity how to play tutorials, so you'll be seeing those soon. As for do I use any online sites? Yes, I use Infinity Pool and Infinity's actual army builder. Infinity's army builder is great for the aesthetics, but the printout is awful. It's just too big, it's not concise. Infinity Pool's printout is awesome, except when you have a unit with a bot attached to it. For some reason, it prints them off as one line and doesn't show you the stats of the bot, and doesn't show you the proper weapons for the actual unit. So I would just wish that it just made it 2 lines, like it does in the Infinity one. So I use the combination of the two. Storm Shadow, hi Matthew. I just got the Vault membership, and just want to say I love your reports, and you guys are the reason why I started my interest in Warhammer 40k. I haven't played a game yet, but I am starting with the Warhammer 40k Dark Vengeance. Love painting, and I'm starting to build my own army. Keep the good work, and best regards from Norway. A word in Norwegian, Lykke means good luck. Thank you. Grey Fox Liquid, sorry for double posting, but speaking of 40k video games, the French developers Struman, they did EYE, Divine Cybermancy. Haven't heard of that one. are currently developing Space Hulk Deathwing. It'll be a first-person shooter in, you guessed it, the Space Hulk universe. They just have a small teaser for now. Did you already hear of it? If yes, what are your thoughts about the Space Hulk as a first-person shooter? If you didn't hear of it, how do you feel about it now? I think I heard about it, but I don't really know much about it. What do I think about a first-person shooter? Well, if it's developed well, it'll be fun. The Space Hulk video game as it is right now is like kind of laughable in parts. Like the grammar is even wrong, and some of the missions are kind of interesting. It's enjoyable, and having played the Space Hulk game and liked it, it is enjoyable that way. If I were to give it a rating, like 100 out of 100 kind of thing. If you played Space Hulk the board game, I'd give it a rating of 70, and if you hadn't, I'd give it a rating of like 50, because I don't know how you'd get into that game without knowing the game beforehand. Not just learning it, but just enjoying it in general. The sun is moving, and now it's more on my face. Hope that doesn't bother you. Azebo. I myself am not religious, however, I do not hold any grudges against those who are. That's great. I will admit, however, I was very surprised when you mentioned how Mormons believe there is life on other planets. Whilst I may not believe God placed them, etc., I find it very refreshing to know that some religions do in fact support things like Earth not being the center of the universe. The more you know, eh? Thank you for your little insight into your faith. Whilst I do not like to think I am prejudiced, assuming most/all religions have the same general views on the topic shows that I, and maybe many others, are prejudiced. Learning is fun. Well, prejudice might be a strong word for it, because you have you're exposed to it to a certain degree, right? And so if all you've been exposed to is a certain way, then yeah, you'll have the thought that that's the way that people think. And so yeah, but obviously not everybody thinks the way that we think that they think. So keep up with the sit and talks. They're fantastic just to listen to on a slow weekend. Thank you. And Azebo, going to the science stuff you mentioned, I actually really enjoy the idea and the pondering over of the, whoa, this is long, wow, this is a long comment. Universe and its expansion. The universe is always expanding, but the universe is, well, everything. What is it expanding into? Whilst I am sure there are theories out there, it is one of the many things that I find fascinating about life and everything. There are so many unknowns. Interesting. You're asking me, finally, sorry, I'm just skimming because I don't have time to read the whole thing. I was wondering about your thoughts on slavery. I can sum it up pretty fast. Bad. Bad. No exceptions. I know you're saying here, I understand this is a very sensitive subject, and would like to start by saying, I do not believe in it. That's good. However, slavery has led to some amazing things. Entire empires have been built on the back of slaves, and those empires have advanced the human race beyond what many would have thought it possible. They helped create the pyramids, etc. No, it's bad. Always has been. Always will be. I don't think that any evolution of our society has come because they used slaves. Like, it would have been better if they had not. And going off the super serious stuff mentioned here, I think MMOs are a good thing, or at the very least World of Warcraft is a good thing, kind of. Whilst creation has spawned countless abominations and shameless clones trying to cash in on its success has helped Blizzard do some amazing things. That constant stream of money has fueled the next generation of amazing games like StarCraft 2, which is by far the biggest and most influential RTS in the market. I agree. Heck, even Diablo, despite its issues, is a fantastic game that might not have been made without World of Warcraft. Blizzard is only getting larger, with games like Hearthstone and Heroes of the Swarm, and this in part is down to World of Warcraft and the success. Oh yeah, definitely. If you're making that much money on a monthly basis, you can afford to really start developing other things. Despite this, I feel that Elder Scrolls Online will be a massive flop, just like The Lord of the Rings, Warhammer, and Star Wars before it. I would much prefer if they simply did what modders have been trying to do for the past 20 years, give or take, and that is make all the regions accessible. Let people travel from Skyrim to Morrowind, from Morrowind to Tamriel, from all those places to Daggerfall, etc. A big job indeed, but it would be something magical. Yeah, they've built this fantastic world. It would be neat if they could kind of make a supermassive one. One last thing, Den of Imagination. Wow. I have never really contemplated commission painting in the past, but your little Den video really got me interested. It is hard to find the time to paint, especially with work and life getting in the way, and Den seemed to do an amazing work for a fair price. Thank you for sharing. It was awesome. Somebody mentioned as well, I'm not sure if I'll get to their comment, that it's a different studio doing the MMO for Elder Scrolls, and so it shouldn't slow the production of the next Elder Scrolls single-player game. If that's the case, I'm all for it. You know what? If you want to experiment with going and making an MMO in it, that alone would remove any of my dislike for the fact that they're doing it. The dislike that I had was that, like, for example, when World of Warcraft came out, I was enjoying the Warcraft the real-time strategy games. And Warcraft 3, while it wasn't this fantastic game, was enjoyable enough, and it left it a cliffhanger. And even in the Frozen Throne, the ending of it, the story was left in a cliffhanger. And so I look forward to the next game, not just for the game, but to see the story advance. And the fact that the story continues in another genre of the game ticked me off. I'm just like, come on, I wanted Warcraft 4 to continue the story, not World of Warcraft to continue the story. It just that ruined it for me. So I was worried that Elder Scrolls was kind of heading in the same direction. I know that from one game to the next, they don't really continue a story. They kind of talk about past things that happen, and you kind of get this, you know, you read a book or something and you see, oh yeah, it talks about things that happen in another game. That's fun. But it's still, in the same sense, it continues developing the world. And so if they're going to continue developing the world in the single player and develop it in an MMO, heck, if they do other spin-off games of different types of games, then I'm fine with that. As long as their tried and tested method of making these really good, immersive single-player games doesn't stop. Like, why would you stop something that already has proven to work? Like, it's insane. But if it's a different studio, then I'm actually all for it. Because if it doesn't work, big deal, they can continue with the single player. If it does work, then it just brings more people into Elder Scrolls, makes it more popular, gives them more money to then develop their other stuff as well. Even if I'm not a big fan of MMOs, it doesn't mean that other people are not. Okay, we got a few more minutes. Slart Tarama. Hi Matt, really enjoying these sit and talks. Thank you. As an adult atheist, as opposed to what? A kid atheist? Middle-aged atheist? Just wanted to say that I am not offended by the religious talk in these videos. Great. The way that you go about discussing it is friendly, open, and logical. I have many friends who are devout in one religion or another, so I can safely say that being religious or not does not make someone naive or foolish. I think that a big problem with maybe the majority of these types of discussions is ignorance. Many atheists think that all religions folks are closed-minded and, as you say, believe in magic. Not to say that there aren't many. The same seems to be that a lot of religious people think all atheists are closed-minded and cold. Yeah. I think that people should approach this kind of gigantic question with logic and a scientific method. It is not necessarily wrong to logically have a hypothesis, and I say I believe this because of this and go from there. I don't think we should fight over it, especially kill over it. Logical, civil discussions are fine. That is perfect. And if everybody could think that way, no matter what our beliefs are, we'd definitely get along a lot better. Sorry that was long. Keep up the good work. You guys are great. Thank you. There's some more about religion. I'm just kind of skipping over because they're the same kind of subject. Swashbuckler Jim. Hello, Matt. When I originally signed up for the Vault, it was to get the free DVDs, but then I got hooked on the videos you guys make. I never did download the DVDs because I don't see the need, as I will continue to be a Vault member for a long while. I only play War Machine myself, but I have friends that play all the various systems that you cover. I watch all the battle reports that you guys produce and slowly pick up the rules as I watch them. I like your religious outlook on life and science, being able to see both sides of an argument and not just dismissing the other side. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Thank you. Big Gaz J. Hi Matt, if you keep dancing like you did in the Blu-ray giveaway, we can forgive you anything. Also, as a birthday treat, I got myself a silver membership, as I really want to follow the campaign you're doing, as I love games with the storyline. Happy wargaming, dude. Thank you. And I honestly can tell you for sure that you can expect more campaigns after that one. Hopefully I can organize it in such a way that there's usually always a campaign going on. And not always 40k either. There might be other games that we do them for. Chris56 Ryan, hi Matt, I just had a thought about your attempts to increase content. I don't know if it really is the case, but it sounds like working the regular 9 to 5 on weekdays is hindering your access to wargamers, which will limit your content. That is true. Would you ever consider changing your working hours, even for only 2 days a week? For example, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, work 1 to 9 instead. Because of other responsibilities that I have and stuff, that would be very hard for me. But we've found our workaround for that, and that is that we have other employees who make videos too, like Jay and now Joel, and they work those types of hours and Saturdays and stuff. So that's allowed us to open up. And on top of that, Jay even goes to Black Knight games to play, and that gives us a larger location. Ideally, what would happen is that we would set up a new studio somewhere in like Hamilton or Toronto, which we want to do one day, but we have to make sure we can afford that. It's like that whole sustainability thing I was talking about. Because once we can set up a studio in a larger area, then we can hire a couple really good battle report producers, and there goes our problem of players. And then Dave and I can focus on things like the campaigns and just other stuff that we do. Even though we have access to less players, we can kind of use those players more. Like Steve, for example, the guy who's playing the Necron Tyranid campaign, is probably going to be doing a campaign with Dave next. And he's actually willing to make a whole new army just for that. So Steve is awesome. Somebody put that in the comments. They said, Steve is awesome. And I should have replied and said, I agree, because he is. Now the sun is trying to bother me. Move forward a little bit. Okay, just about out of time. Been a little over an hour. Mr. 3, hi man, I've been watching you guys off and on since pre-5th edition Tyranids, but I'd like to know what you think of the new Imperial Knights Codex. It seems like a big codex based on $140 models. When I first saw the teaser trailer, I thought it would be a Mechanicus release, and I was excited, but when I saw this, I was like, whose idea was this? Yeah, it seems pricey. I don't expect... I know some people, when I did the digital editions review, it was actually quite mixed response to that. A lot of people agreed with me. A lot of people disagreed. They're like, no, you can't expect it for free. There's a White Dwarf article that talked about how this actually allowed them to release more content, and yeah, I can get all of that. And maybe my opinions of that will change over time, or maybe not. Maybe I still will disagree. But it's a $140 model that they're trying to sell, and so to require also a $40 or $50 codex or whatever it costs in order to use it, just the one model, if that's what I understand. I actually haven't looked closely. That seems kind of counterproductive. It might, on one hand, it seems productive because it's an upsell. In order to get the $140 model, you have to spend another $40 on this thing. But on the other hand, that's going to limit their sales of this model because, well, that's more expensive. Whereas if it was like, when you buy the model, you get the free data sheet to play to the model, and it tells you the rules for using it. Like, well, that just seems like a no-brainer to me. But it's not always easy to see what the best strategy is for these kind of things. I haven't really looked closely at it though. I don't. The look of the model is fine. It's a Games Workshop look, so it looks like a mini Titan, so that's fine. I think we're going to finish there. Maybe I'll do one more. Let's see if there's an interesting question I can get to really fast. Omakaden, hi Matt, fast question so you can get to other people's questions too, or finish. Will Mini Wargaming ever have their own Dark Eldar army? I can't say no. I have no interest in having a Dark Eldar army. Dave has no interest in having a Dark Eldar army. And really that just leaves Jay, and I'm not sure if he does.
No.
Nope, he just said no. So of the three of us, you're not going to see it. But that doesn't mean in the future you won't, because hopefully over time we'll expand, and there'll be more employees, and I'm sure that there'll be somebody who will want to do Dark Eldar. Eventually we'd like to have all the armies covered, right? The ideal situation is that we're covering multiple games and really covering the majority of the armies. Obviously the more popular armies are going to be seen more often, but we still like to allow those people who play the less popular armies to be seeing those as well. It's a good business strategy, right? It's expansion, allows more viewers to enjoy the content. So that's the honest answer I can give. Well, I got to page 8 out of 15. So I apologize to all those who I couldn't get to the comments for, but hey, you guys keep posting this many comments. I can't answer them on a weekly basis. I'll have to start doing sit-and talks every day. And obviously that's not feasible. So I'll just do the best I can. Of course, if you want your comment answered, make sure you're one of the first to post. So you need to come in early and watch the sit and talk and post your question. Make sure you watch the whole sit and talk, of course, which you have if you're listening at this point, so that you know if your question was answered or not. Anyways, this is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Thank you for watching, and happy wargaming.